In 2014, COP20 held in Lima attracted over 15,000 official delegates, and negotiators concluded talks with the Lima Call for Climate Action, a draft document that lays the foundations for a new global climate deal.
We're going to get a deal that will be beneficial to the climate because, before now, many scientists are skeptical. They just feel that climate change is a cycle, a geological cycle, and many politicians believe that story, and they feel that do nothing is the option. But now we are seeing those kind of things we've never seen before, in terms of storms, in terms of fire outbreak and things like that. So the people are beginning to really believe that there is truly a climate change, even at the highest level. So I was quite impressed when Obama said, we go to Paris and we're going to do something positive. Why don't you want me to be positive? Really, this is the first time we find an American president saying that I will go to Paris, a place like COP21, and I'm going to do something great. So I'm also hopeful. We're going to do something great.
A study released by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the Climate Policy Initiative in October aims to provide the first clear snapshot of how far which countries are from achieving the 2020 target, a key ingredient for a new global climate change deal in December.
Chacun doit essayer de réorienter.
Everyone needs to try to redirect the financing, maybe even increase or redirect the financing where it would be better if the investors, instead of investing in carbon mines, invested in wind and solar energy, where the countries finance the development of gas plants with the greenhouse effect. It would be better even with the nations for developing countries from now on to adopt clean energy production. It's necessary for all the multinational and multilateral bodies, the World Banks, regional banks, the American banks, the African banks, the Asian banks, and the European banks to redirect parts of their financing towards a carbon-free economy. There are internal decisions that should be taken. It's work to be done on behalf of the concerned countries for the project that permit the carrying out of these great challenges to be financed in the coming years.
Permettent de faire face à ce grand défi qui puisse être financé dans les années qui viennent.
Declaration that we have adopted today.
In his address to the world leaders in New York in September, President Muhammadu Buhari said the Nigerian position on the Paris conference, which reflects the African consensus, is that a legally binding universal instrument will be beneficial to all state parties. He said Nigeria will continue to champion the core principles and goals of the new Sustainable Development Agenda and hopes that the next conference of parties will eventually become a global milestone to combat and cushion the dire impact of climate change.
You need to address the issue of technology. We need to address the issue of capacity building. We need to address the issue of finance. We also need to address the issue of understanding the basis, the convention. They need to understanding what we call technology mechanism. So these are critical issues. They are not textbook stuff. These are critical issues that you and I must be prepared to face. And the other side, which I think is very critical, is that we ourselves must be ready. Nigeria has not only the population, we also have the experts. But there is a need for us to put all these things together. And we are looking at the issue of how do you build capacity in this area that in another 5 years, people can have a profession. Because that is where the world is going. You are talking about low carbon economy. That is where the new road of where our economy is going. It's a low carbon economy. What does it mean? What are the ground rules? Do we have what it takes? These are knowledge-based things. They are not theory.
Consequent to the inadequacies of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and its Kyoto Protocol to sufficiently tackle climate change, parties to the UNFCCC took a decision at COP17 in Durban, South Africa, to establish the ad hoc working group on the Durban Platform for Enhanced Action, mandated to develop a new climate agreement through which all parties, including Nigeria, will contribute to reduction of their greenhouse gas emissions, which will hold global temperature increase to 2 degrees centigrade and below. In the effort to execute the mandate of the ADP, the Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC, by its decisions, invited all parties to develop and communicate to the Secretariat their intended nationally determined contributions. The Lima Call for Action had encouraged countries in a position to do so to submit their INDCs by the 31st of March 2015. A second implicit submission deadline was October 1st, 2015, after which submissions are still allowed but will not be included in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Synthesis Report, which will be made available to parties in time for the COP21 in Paris in December.
It is clear that countries would like to see a meaningful outcome in Paris. 151 countries have now submitted their climate action plans, the so-called Intended Nationally Determined Contributions, or INDCs. More than half of these were just submitted in the last 2 weeks. The Climate Change Secretariat is now analyzing the plans to see what they mean in terms of how far they will get us toward limiting the global temperature rise to less than 2 degrees Celsius. Their report on this should be out.
Usually this thing runs in cycles. When you have a bad COP, the subsequent COP is always good. So based on that tradition, I think Paris will be good. What you have in Durban was just getting the principles together. So what Paris is going to look at is aggregating the principles. So what we expect is when the INDCs are submitted, the Secretariat will find aggregate. Based on that, we will know if the aggregate will be sufficiently impactful. If it's sufficiently impactful, then we don't put pressure on any country to change its intention. But if it's not, we have to plead and plead with ourselves. Again, we want it to be self-driven. And if it's self-driven, you know, it's a volunteering kind of thing, it's likely to be successful than if you are being dragged. It is the dragging that people are resisting. But if I bring myself to you myself, then I'll be happier with you.
In this regard, Nigeria has developed a draft INDC with inputs of data and information from across diverse sources. The draft was presented at a National Stakeholders Consultative and Validation Workshop. Reports say Nigeria is considering 30% energy efficiency in industries, homes, businesses and vehicles, and increased use of natural gas in generators and renewable energy. Other measures being considered include stopping gas flaring, capture of gas, setting standard for appliances, generators, buildings, and climate-smart agriculture. All is expected to lead to $4.5 billion benefits to the country. However, Nigeria is yet to submit any commitment to the UN Climate Secretariat. But to those who know, all hope is not lost.
This is the longest we are prepared for really any climate change COP. But I can say to you that the INDC for Nigeria is ready. It's just the submission, and it could be a matter of strategy. And I can also say that Nigeria has been very quite positive when it comes to climate change issues. We've always been submitting our communications very promptly. On this matter, maybe it's a matter of strategy.
There are quite a few countries that have capacity challenges. Many of them are least developed countries, and the UN system, particularly UNDP and UNEP, are providing support to try to help those countries. They're also receiving some bilateral support, and we will be working with these countries on a one-to-one basis to make sure that as many of them are delivered by the Paris Conference.
Nigeria, like other developing countries, has the chance to leapfrog from the dirt of powerful countries by embracing 100% renewable energy to generate its electricity by 2030, as it should be enshrined in their plan for COP21. Effective climate action will not only protect and maintain the country's ecosystems, but can also spur economic growth, enhance the ability of the country to cope with impact of climate change, and encourage more sustainable development pathways. Well, that's our program for today. Do join us next week if you could. But if you'd like to view this episode or any other episode of the program, simply go to our website, channelstv.com, then click Programs and then SFAL. Do also remember that you can reach us anytime and anywhere by writing to sfal@channelstv.com. Well, from all of us here in Lagos, it's bye for now.